All right, ladies and gentlemen, moving on to our second topic with factoring. We're going to talk about solving quadratic equations in that same format. So let's look at a problem here. Remember that in order to solve x plus 3 times x plus 4 equals 0, we would use the zero product property. We would say x plus 3 equals 0, or x plus 4 equals 0. And then we would solve both equations. So x would equal -3, or x would equal -4. Those negative signs are not being very nice to me. Okay, so that's a little refresher from last week, right? So thinking about what we learned yesterday, and that, how could we solve this equation? Well, remember the first question is always, does it equal 0? In this case, it equals 0. The second question is, do I have an a times a b? Well, I don't, so I need to try to factor it. My first option in factoring is to see if there's a greatest common factor. In this case, there's not. So option 2 is to make my factor and sum table. I'm looking for factors of 12 that add up to 7. And 3 times 4 is going to work for me. So when I factor this, I get x plus 3 times x plus 4 equals 0. Now that looks familiar, right? So the answers would be x equals -3, or x equals -4. And we know that because we could use the zero product property, just like we did up here, to find those two possible answers. So this isn't too difficult, right? Why don't you try the next problem on your own? A little propaganda for the zero product property, our BFF, the ZPP. Thank God for him, huh? All right, so let's try some problems together. We've got x squared minus 4x minus 21 equals 0. So first question, does it equal 0? Yes. Second question, is it a times b? No. Third question, can I factor it? Is there a GCF? No. So let's make a factor sum table. We're looking for factors of -21 that add up to -4. So I know 1 and 21 is not going to work. What about 3 times 7? I see my sum has to be negative, so the bigger number is going to be negative. That'll work for us. So I go ahead and I write my factored version. X plus 3, x minus 7 equals 0. Now I use the zero product property and I say x plus 3 equals 0, or x minus 7 equals 0. And I solve each equation. And I have two possible answers, -3 and 7. Now I want to see if you guys remember how to check your solution. Any ideas? Well, you would want to take that number and plug it in for both x's. So you would try -3 squared minus 4 times -3 minus 21, and it would need to equal 0. So you could plug all that into your calculator and make sure it equals 0. And then you do the same thing with 7. 7 squared minus 4 times 7 minus 21, and that should also equal 0. Plug that all into your calculator and make sure it equals 0. I'd like you to try the next two problems, number 7 and number 9, on your own. Push pause, and then check to see if you did them okay. All right, so now that you've paused it, you're back at me, and let's see if you got these right or not. So remember, does it equal 0? Yes. Is it a times b? No. Is there a greatest common factor? No. So I'm making a factor and sum table, factors of 54 that add up to negative 15. 54, so we could do 6 times 9. And if we do 6 times 9, that'll give us positive, but we won't get a negative 15. But if I make them both negative, that will give me negative 15. So then I write a factored form. And remember to write this still as an equation. It still equals 0. If you don't write it as an equation, you still technically can't do the zero product property. So now we split into x minus 6 equals 0, or x minus 9 equals 0. We add 6 to both sides, we add 9 to both sides, and we find out our possible answers are x equals 6 or x equals 9, and we can check that in our calculator. Number 9, does it equal 0? Yes, it does. Does it have a GCF? No, it does not. Factor sum table it is. Factors of negative 72 that add up to negative 1. All right, 72, that's divisible by 9, so what is that, 8 times 9? And I need one of them to be negative. My sum is negative 1, so the 9 will be negative, and that'll work. Write the factored form, x plus 8, x minus 9 equals 0. Zero product property, x plus 8 equals 0, or x minus 9 equals 0. Subtract 8 from both sides, add 9 to both sides, x equals negative 8, or x equals 9. Can check that in my calculator, making sure that it equals 0. Comments, questions, or concerns? Pretty easy, right, friends? All right, so homework then. You've got 10 problems. Bust them out. I want you to notice that a lot of these problems do not equal 0. For example, look at number 21. It does not equal 0, so what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to subtract 20 to make it equal 0. Then you can go ahead and factor. Good luck.